Hi everyone, you're very welcome to this week's episode of Parlay with Padre podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe and click the notifications bell if you're watching on YouTube so don't miss any future videos and updates. And if you're listening on audio only on Podbean or Spotify, please click follow. You can also check out my vlogging channel, Pitch Spotting with Padraig. Some very exciting matches to come on that very shortly. If you're enjoying the content on the podcast and would like to buy me a coffee, you can do so in the link below as well. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend Mark Radley, previous guest of the podcast. It's been longer than I thought it would be. Time has just flown by since your last by, Mark. But you're very welcome back and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, Bud, and thanks for having me. And all the best to you, cheers.
There's good health.
And you. And to all the listeners as well.
Last time we were speaking, Mark, things were looking very positive for Liverpool. Just after winning the Carabao Cup, in contention for 4 trophies, which is still war up until the last day of the league season, 50 minutes left. Things have gone south pretty badly since then, haven't they?
Yeah. To be honest with you, at that time, we were on a crest of a wave, and I felt we were invincible. We didn't fear anybody. Obviously, City could compete with us, but nobody else. Didn't fear anybody in Europe, and things were only looking positive. I didn't think it was. I thought we could dominate football, except for City, for the next 5-10 years because of the potential we got. So, and it seems that it's happened. So the turnaround has happened so dramatically, so quick. It's you can sometimes see signs of a player maybe be past his best, and you might need to replace one or two, but. It feels like it's not like it's a bit of a punch in a wheel. It feels like all the wheels are falling off. It does feel that bad at the moment.
So I suppose the start of the season, I thought for me, losing at Old Trafford was a telltale sign. The performance that night, they played us off the park that game, to be honest. It was the third game of the season.
Yeah.
And that was a United team that hadn't started well. Like, they'd been beaten 4-0 by Brentford. They lost to Bournemouth.
Yeah.
And it was we were in disarray that night. Now, things improved a bit before the World Cup, winning at Spurs and that. And even after the World Cup, beating Aston Villa, now we needed 2 own goals to beat Leicester.
Yeah.
Which at the time papered over a couple of cracks, but the warning signs were there. But the game against Brentford and the game most recently against Brighton, they were 2 shockers, weren't they?
They were 2 shockers. As you say, going back from the point of the telltale signs being there, ironically, being at United, and that always hurts anyway. Never an easy place to go normally, but in recent times, more than confident because they're shocking. You got to remember as well, at that point, it wasn't like that was their turn in the season, whereas you look at them last night and how they've changed in recent weeks. They were still having issues there with Ronaldo and things like that going on in the background. Obviously, that thorn in their side has moved on. I think they're only going to thrive now after that. I think the manager's proven he's the one, he's the boss there. No one's going to harm. I think he was only a distraction, but that's another story. But I think that game, it should have given us a kick up the backside. If anything, we've been beat by them. It hurts because of who they are to us with our rivalry. So, and it didn't. We didn't react, should we say, in the right way. Those other games that have come through, your Brentfords and people like that, don't get me wrong, respect to them in the sense that, they're raising the game. They played well. I think it was City the week before they played us. There's no mugs anymore, some of these teams. Amazing to see what they've done as well, considering the players that they brought, the players they lost. In the way that Eriksen had gone from there, and when you think away, they haven't just lost a good player and then gone on. They've sort of consolidated themselves in the Premier League and then gone on and moved on and are playing. The effort there is phenomenal, and that's the word. I think, as much as it hurts watching what's going on, and we expect better results. I've always been brought up, it doesn't matter if it's home or the away side, if you play well and you can see that the players are trying and the effort's there and you get beat, you'll applaud the opposite. You go, you must have been great to beat. You don't mind if the effort is there. The problem I'm getting and the way I feel right now is I don't feel the effort is that the commitment's there, the effort's there. it's so lackluster. So it's horrible to watch. The body language doesn't seem right. Something does not seem right at the club right now. My personal opinion, it's not just necessary. We always try to touch on it the first few games. Everyone was sort of saying, is it because we're missing Mane? Is it a bigger situation? Did we underestimate how much that we would miss Sadio? You know, I think that's true in some ways, but I don't think we could ever rely on one player. When you analyse the players coming in and out, i.e. Injuries, yes, it's not good. I personally think we brought in Mane's replacements earlier before he left in the way of Luis Diaz, and I think when we think about the impact he made last season, I think we were confident that we were going to be okay. To lose him, it's sort of as if we've lost two players before Mane's gone and Luis meant to have then replaced him or been added. There's two players there. Our front line's completely changed. You know, if you look at the starting lineup, I was looking at it just before for the game and looking back at it. It's not recognisable other than Mo, and that's another subject. You know, he's not. His effort looks like he's trying in some games, but he's certainly not the player he was before he signed that new contract. And he's a player that I thought I was quietly happy that he didn't go to. He wasn't going to the World Cup, although a player of that stature should be playing for his country. I was made up as a Liverpool fan because I thought, he's got to get a bit of rest there. He's only going to have the friendly games. He's not going to be in the World Cup, so he should be coming back chomping at the bit. While other players might be a little bit tired late, he's got to be fresher. And he's not the player he was, you know.
The club just looks broken at the moment, or the team, I should say, looks broken in every department. Even Alisson, who is Mr. Dependable.
Yeah.
The game in between the two matches we mentioned against Wolves, you know, we'll talk about offside later on in the Manchester derby. Liverpool benefited a lot from the offside interpretation against Wolves.
Could have been a lot worse, yeah.
The rules were applied correctly, I think we'd be out of the FA Cup now.
100%, yeah.
And Alisson had a shaky night.
He did, yeah.
There's not one area of the pitch at the minute, goalkeeper aside, we couldn't really blame Alisson for the goals against Brighton Saturday. There's no area in the pitch that screams out solidity or consistency at the minute. It's all over the place. Against Brentford, the ball was in the net 4 times in the first half. 2 of them were offside. But every time Brentford got a corner, you thought it was going to be a goal. And that was with Van Dijk, and I suppose he picked up an injury late in the first half. But the organisation, things just gone to complete pot. And maybe things have to hit rock bottom before they get better. Yeah. But I thought the Brentford game was poor. But can you remember in recent under Klopp, and he said it himself, can you remember a worse Liverpool performance than the one at Brighton Saturday?
Not in all losses hurt me in every way, and in different ways, whether it be how the importance or magnitude, but it still hurts me whether it's what some people think is a less important game. But I think we've had games where we should win, or games where people have come back and beat us, but not so much where we've still had moments in games where we've gone, or we've had games where we've been beat, but we've actually been the better team, where we've outbattered teams, or we normally always still have that period of in any game we could have a 20-minute period where we can dominate, or we can dominate possession. And when you look at stats as well over the last 12 months, there's been a lot of games where we'll have the 60-70% possession. We're turning back into the team where we were before, where we seem to, whereas before we might have loads and loads of chances, loads of things we might not convert, but then we could still be playing to the 92nd, 94th minute like United used to do. That's not happening. We're not penetrating teams with high level, high tempo football. Yeah. Klopp alluded to in his press conference when he said it's probably one of the worst things, and he said we need to be strong from the back, and any organisation needs to be from the back before we can talk about anything else. And he's right. You need to stop goals before you start letting goals in. But at the same time, I believe that one of our strengths always been as Liverpool is our defence have always come from the rushy times when we defend from the front. And when I look back at the game which I did earlier today to refresh myself on everything, that's not happening That's not happening. When not, it's bypassing that midfield far too easy.
Yeah.
We've got nobody sitting in front. Okay, Van Dijk's now got injured and everything else, but I don't think he was the player he was before his injury anyway. I don't think it's been the same. But I don't think the ball's getting passed, and we haven't got a player that mops up or prevents anything to shield that defence. There's nobody in there doing that. Wijnaldum did that well in the past. We've had even if it was someone like a Lucas Leiva or whatever, just somebody that picks up those things, a Mascherano or whatever, somebody that does that sort of role. We haven't got anybody that does that. I'm a big fan of Henderson. I think he's been brilliant over the years, but I think he's a player at the moment that's struggling to play more than one game in a week, which means then the game he doesn't play, we lose balance. When he does play, he's then found more often than not over the last couple of years, he's given Trent the license to be able to go forward, and Trent's fantastic going forward. But because he gives him the license to, he more often than not covers for him at the back. And he hasn't got the legs he had to do that last year and the year before. Every year he's getting that bit older. So Trent's now being found out for having his weaknesses. But he got away with it because of Hendo. But that's not Hendo's fault. He's doing someone else's job. So I personally think, I know we're here to talk about football, but it's about the club, isn't it? And I personally think it's not coincidental that two clubs at the moment that are going through a hell of a lot of problems at the moment are both up for sale and both are in Merseyside. And I think in any organisation, it doesn't matter whether it's football or any type of business, and unfortunately football today is a business, when you know that your business is up for sale, as they say, when the cat's away, the mice will play. Now the cat's still there. The cat's not interested. And what I mean is, he's not doing nothing with the mice. So the boss and anybody else is thinking, they're not interested. They're not going to tell me off I'm not doing the job because they're going anyway. It's me new owners I need to impress. And that determination that would be there from Klopp needing to impress his peers and his bosses, then that pressure goes on the players to impress the one underneath, which is the boss. And that's the same in any organisation of business. It filters through from the top. And I personally believe that the problems we've got, if you look at it, we did look like we were improving slightly before the World Cup. Nothing brilliant. We still had cracks. We still had issues. But I was confident we'd come back and we'd be okay. Then we announced we're up for sale. I don't think we've been the same since that's been publicly announced. I don't think it's helping Everton Football Club that they're up for sale. And I don't think there's any issues there until you get that in place, that your security's sound and whatever's going on. I honestly believe there's too many rumours that's affecting things on the pitch. And I know the professionals. I know it's not an excuse. They're there to pay a lot of money to play for our football club. They should be honoured. And I think the managers, etc., should be doing that. But it's no coincidence that there's people above Klopp that aren't having conversations they probably haven't before. Ward and people like that are talking about people. We've replaced two people above Klopp within a short space of time. One's gone off abroad within the space of somebody else already looking like he's going. The name, sorry, of not coming off the top of my tongue right now, but you know what I mean. So who does who become answerable to? If I was afraid to go into my job every morning because I have to explain myself to somebody, you get that extra 10-15% because you're afraid of having that meeting with somebody. I don't think that's happening at the moment. I think the clubs all over the place because of what's happening behind the scenes. That's my personal opinion.
No, and there's definitely a lot of merit in that. The only thing I would say to counter that is that Man United are also up for sale as well, and they seem to be dealing with things a lot better right now. And you could maybe put that at Ten Hag. Maybe it's a release, getting rid of Ronaldo. But
I think I think he's used it as a way of galvanising them. And you're right, and it's a very good comparison actually that they are as well. You sink or swim, don't you? You got a different thing. Some people might. Some managers might need pressure to work like players do. Some managers, if they're not getting separate player, might be able to feel a bit more free reign. I honestly think that it's a horrible word to use, but that cancer at Manchester United, as they call it, there's always something in the nucleus that causes that affects things in the way of like a negative response or spreads through the rest of a squad like Counter was Ronaldo. And unfortunately, he's been a great player for many years, but the way what he was doing at that football club was disrespecting the whole club, and that affected. I think it was the best thing they did was get rid of him, and I think they're showing that now.
Yeah, he was poisonous, and
Poison's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I think Ronaldo was a malignant force.
Yeah,
in
definitely.
that United dressing room, and sometimes, we've all worked with people or been in groups where people make it all about them, and I'd say he was very demanding of other players as well to make him look good, so
true, yeah. It's true.
It's like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders, I'd say, you don't sleep with that every day.
If that's their weight, then what's ours? Because we need something to lift. And if that's their weight, then they found something. I think that instead of being a positive and coming in, they've galvanised him. They knew him. Ten Hag was never a bad manager, but it was with that club too big for him. He's all proven he's obviously going to get better, and I would think so if he given time. Bringing his own people in as well, workhorses. Where United have always just wanted names and quality. I think he's brought some people in there that know him, and he knows he's going to get a song out of them, respect him. What is it that's gone wrong with our football club? Because I love Klopp, as I think all Liverpool fans do, and I really don't. You don't want to let somebody like that go because he'll only thrive somewhere else. And who do you replace him with? But at the same time, you can't keep saying it's not always the players. It's his job to get a tune out of them. That's why I was studying the squad when I was looking at the team before and saw where are we at? Where were we at with this fixture last year? Where were we at this time last year? Who's in the personnel? As the squad depleted that much, we should, I think, other than the Chamberlain and Gant, the new that lad up front with Mo at the front, other than those two, I think there should have been enough in the other 9 players there that would have featured most of last season, other than Van Dijk maybe instead of Matip at different times. I don't know. I think there's so much body language. If we make a change now with a substitution, if Trent goes off or somebody goes off, you can see them sulking. You can see them going off and then walking all the way around the field, and then they're not happy, and that's happened quite a lot. I've noticed in the last 12 when the game's in, more Robbo are being brought off, as to say you're not pulling your weight. I don't know how much that then affects them going off. New players coming in, excitement for the future was Trent, Carvalho. There's obviously been Carvalho hasn't been featuring since he was pulled off a few weeks back. Does that create negativity? I'm sure it does. But he should be remembered. He's only young. He's gone to Liverpool. He's got to learn his trade. He's going to have a bad game for every so many game. But the balance isn't right, I don't think.
Yeah, I think we must remember as well, and it's very easy to forget, that we're the only team in history that played 64 games in one season.
Yeah.
Last year, in terms of fighting on 4 fronts. And the way it finished, the heartbreak of losing the league with Man City coming from 2 goals down with a quarter of an hour to go or whatever it was. That was one of the most devastating moments of a football fan being in the stadium that day, and Wolves fans rubbing in as well. It hurt.
It did hurt, and I think it's a massive hangover. Maybe we underestimate it. Maybe it's but I've also.
But the Real Madrid final as well. Just to add to that, obviously we're going to speak about another similar situation soon. What happened in the Newcastle game the other week, but we're very lucky there wasn't a repeat of Hillsborough outside Paris. I was one of the people outside in the ground. I ended up getting crushed for a while getting in. A tragedy nearly took place that night. So you have on top of losing a Champions League final, there's a lot of stories came back from Paris. Like Andy Robertson got one of his pals a ticket for the game and it wouldn't work. Kind of, so your man couldn't get in. So the whole thing was a complete shambles. Yeah. You'd wonder psychologically. I know they would have been protected from a lot of the stuff outside the stadium and all that, but when you've come so close to creating history, but on top of that, you have 2 leagues lost by a point to a club that far outstrips them in spending power in Man City. When you push them tooth and nail and just fell that sharp by the lowest possible amount, losing 2 Champions League finals, there's going to be a hangover. We just didn't think it was going to result in them staying in bed till 6 o'clock in the evening, to give it an analogy, like, it's lasting 9 months, like,
I think you're right. And maybe I'm wrong to think what I was thinking before, but I think you're right. And you blob on. I don't think anyone's discussed that in any of the punditry that we're seeing or anything. If no one's addressing that, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, psychological, and when you push for something for the rewards and you get them, you see the reward where the reward is what's been given to you for what you've achieved for doing that. So to do what they've done, and theoretically not get the reward for, because theoretically, literally by a point or by a margin or by a thing, it was unprecedented. No one else would have done that. If they'd done that, they'd have gone down in history. So psychologically, could they will push again, or actually put ourselves through everything, and we still don't win, or whatever, we still don't do it. But I think it deserved it, just for the fact that they were doing it on every front. So to get a quadruple, to have done it, and we were so close. But unfortunately, news not good enough. But and we'd all would have swapped certain other trophies, your Carabao Cups and your thing, for the two romantic ones instead, the bigger ones. And I think we did them. But listen, Cities have been consistent for years, but they seem to win one and then lose one the following season and stuff like that. And I hope that would have happened last year, and I would have thought that. I was hoping we bounced back this season like we did with the season before, after the Champions League defeat that we had with Real Madrid before we went on to win it. Yeah. A year later, I was hoping that whatever happened last year would have galvanised us, etc. But I think you're right. I think we've got a hangover, and you can be deemed a great manager, and you'd be always judged on what you win. But I think a good manager, and show this is Klopp's chance to prove himself as a good manager. Not winning things, how he can turn this around and what he can do. And it can't always be. I'll accept what you say at the moment. We always want every transfer window. We want to look at new players. We want to start to do it. But I'll defend him on that. It's what we've got should be good enough. It's not always your answer. Those players have got us where we've been last year. Yes, some of them are aging. Some of them have had injuries. Yes, we want certain players, but it's not as easy as that, as bringing in your Jude Bellinghams and people like that. We want them, but it's not. We all know it's not as easy as that. So we need to do well with what we've got. The players that are there now need to stand up for themselves, stand up and be counted.
When I was coming back from Paris, I met a very nice man I'm still in touch with today, Jor, on the plane over and back. And he made a comparison. Now, there are 2 very different men, 2 different teams in terms of class, in terms of style and all that. But there's a risk of Klopp's Liverpool team maybe being remembered like Don Reevy's Leeds team of the 70s.
Okay.
Where they just came up short a few more times and they could have won, And like Klopp has won every honour in the game of Liverpool, even the Charity Shield or the Community Shield. But there's always a nagging thing at the back. Get the 3 Champions League finals, winning one league and losing 2 by a point. I just think he could do with another league or another European Cup just to cement the legacy,
I think so, yeah.
I just hope that chance hasn't gone. That's the one hope I would have,
I think in this year of what he's had and the squad he's got, he'd be disappointed himself if he didn't. I think we have to give him that 4 years that he said. Give me 4 years to do what he did. He did. But at that point, I think we were on a tip of. I know we've had COVID, we have other issues, but I think at the point we honestly thought we could beat anybody. We were playing Real Madrid 2 years in a run in a Champions League final. We put the fear of God into them. We battered Barcelona. We come back from a thing. We were. No one wanted to play us. Nobody wanted to play us a few And now that these teams are galvanised in trying to get points from us, and that happens when you're winning things. Teams will always, they'll play like it's their cup final, and they always do with Liverpool. But you've got to, if you do your job right, don't worry about the opposition. And that's what we have done in recent years. We've got our job spot on. We might sometimes look like a team that might go and score. Someone might concede a couple of goals, but we'll always score double the amount. We could do that. I can't sometimes see where we're going to get a goal from right now.
Just on that point, Darwin Núñez is injured at the moment. But what has been your thoughts on Darwin Núñez signed?
I honestly, I was watching a thing with him, who was he talking about him recently? I think it was Gary Neville, actually, believe it or not. Good old Gary Neville. And can, as a pundit, you can't really knock him. He's quite honest with a lot of things. Couldn't stand him as a player, but and he was saying no defender wants to come against him. He's a beast, and he's still a young kid. We're all expecting. The problem we've got is we all expect him to be there or thereabouts already and things like that. Physically, he's a beast. He's going to be. Klopp has compared him to how Lewandowski was when he was his age and had him at Dortmund, which is a cracker. And he said he's the best player he's ever worked with, Lewandowski. So for Klopp to say that, he's going to be some player. The problem is at whose expense till he hits there, and I mean that by he's got. If you looked as well where he was at before, he was at where we've just got him from. His first season, I was looking at the stats the other day. I think he'd only scored 11, and then he finished the highest goal scorer in the league the season after with 36 or something. So his second season was a lot better than the first season. And apparently they say that's been the same as where he's been. So when he's confident and he's happy in his surroundings and people know his runs and what he does and blah, blah, blah. That's he seems to be a player that is needing 4 or 5 chances before he gets his goal, and some of the 4 or 5 chances are the easier chances than maybe the one he scores. But we've got probably one of the highest goal scorers in the Premier League in recent years with Mo Salah, and to be honest with you, if he bagged another 50% of the chances he had, he'd scored even more as well, because he can take a lot of chances sometimes. No, you know what I mean? I just want a player. Bring somebody through to be learning and giving them the opportunities to do it. And if you've got them already hitting the ground straight away, then you've got yourself a right snip for the future. But at that amount of money, what was it, £80-odd million? Yeah. In this day and age, you get someone. I think Liverpool, we shouldn't be. I know Klopp turns players in, but if you're letting a Mane go, you need to replace somebody that's world class, that's proven, and can score goals, because we're in business and we can't afford for somebody to be learning their trade right now. Maybe somebody coming in and he's a squad player and he's got to learn, he's got to get drip fed and get some game time and he does fine. But at that amount of money, he needs to be proven. Let's all face it, La Liga is not the same, in my opinion, as Portugal isn't the same standard of league as the Premier League. So although we might score 33 goals there, it's not the Premier League, is it?
Well, my friend Kieran Shanahan, who's on there a couple of weeks ago, we're discussing Núñez and discussing the league, and he made a very good point that if Núñez had been signed for 30 million from Benfica and wasn't a direct replacement for Mane, you'd be saying he's doing a great job right now. But it's just 100%. The price tag, it comes...
Which is not his fault.
Which is not his fault at all. Like, he didn't... As Cian Dalglish said when he signed from Celtic, I didn't pay it. Like, when he was asked if he thought it was worth the money. So, he can be infuriating. He snatches at shots at times, but there is definitely potential. And that goal he got against Brentford, that was disallowed for offside for, I'd say, the crest that his badge was offside, I'd say, and it was disallowed.
When you mentioned that before about that game, Klopp had definitely had the word at half time. And we came out the blocks, and that goal goes in and get this and out. It could be a different game, because when that was ruled offside, then obviously I think we scored. So then I'm thinking we're going to come around now. This is where we go, and we didn't. And then we were lucky that there wasn't the other offsides, and they didn't score more as well as other goals. But that goal goes in, and it was a cracking goal, as you say, a whisker of a badge. It literally you couldn't have hit it any better. It would have been was a good finish. So I think he is good for the future. I do think he will get better, and I think with someone like Klopp, he'll get better. I just think he He's also going to get the blunt of some problems at the moment because we're not. If we were playing with confidence and flowing football and having as many chances as what we normally got, he probably would have scored even more goals. I mean, it was only a few weeks back when the first few games of the season before the World Cup, people were comparing. He was being compared of look what Arsenal, because Arsenal are the top of the league. Look what Arsenal have got in the way of getting Jesus from City, and look what we've brought in, and blah blah blah. But then within a couple of weeks of the stats, if you actually looked at it, one had scored 2 goals more than the other, but actually in the Zeus compared to Nunes. But Nunes had actually played 50% less minutes time as what done in game time. So his stats were actually within a week that changed. So they were on more or less the same goals. I haven't checked it recently, but
I think why there's so much of a spotlight on Nunes is that when he misses a chance, it's usually a sitter, a really bad chance where he should be hitting the target and just really doesn't. It's bad misses, and it draws. Yeah. You draw attention then onto yourself, and you're missing really scoreable chances. But another point just to make as well, that Jota and Diaz are both injured and have been for the last couple of months there. So Nunes has been having a tough time. He hasn't really had the luxury of being rested as such. Like, he's had to play most games fit, you know.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see a full fit and firing Liverpool front line, whenever that'll be. I think the FSG let Klopp down during the summer by not investing in the midfield. I know what you're saying, that they're the players that have delivered so much, but it needs to be upgraded.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean 100%. When I say they've delivered, but it's an aging midfield. Thiago's class. You can't wrap him. What Cotton Ball, he reminds me a bit of Yari Littman. And years ago, again, apparently his ankles were always with him. He struggles more than a couple of games a week as well, and then obviously he can be quite injury prone at his age now as well. Hendo's been a great servant, but not getting any younger. They're all on the closer, the wrong spectrum of 30 than before. Fabinho, he's not what he was 2 years ago, and I think that's the biggest loss, because he used to sweep things up and stuff as well. He just seems to be ball watching now. I think his cards are marked. I think Ox's cards are marked again. Injury prone. He's only, I think, getting a look at the moment because there's no one else coming in there. Elliott is only going to get better, but he's playing more games than he should be, or out of position as well. So yeah, I think we need somebody like a Jude Bellingham, someone that's exciting, that can control the pace of the game. But they're never gonna. I think we've had our hopes on him, and I think the links are with his family, like Liverpool as well and stuff. But the problem you've got is Dortmund are never going to lose two marquee players, and here they never do. They'll sell one and we'll keep one. So it'd always be next summer. I think we were meant to put a cheeky bid in for something like 106 million. So the rumours were, but we'll if it's going to be 120 that's going to get him, I'd hate to think that we mess about over 15, 16 million again, like we've done with players when that's the jigsaw fit that you think that you need sometimes. Just do it. Like they did with Van Dijk, just do it. But I think the exposure of that player's got even bigger since the World Cup now. So more people like your Cities are going to be sniffing around, especially when I don't think that Grealish is doing it for them like they hoped. So I think they'll be sniffing around, and I'd like to think money doesn't always talk, but I think he'll get better game time. If we're not in the Champions League next year, that's not going to help our matters either. That we were going to bring in. So Jude Bellingham, does he want to come to Liverpool, but he doesn't know who the new owners are going to be? Is anyone's future guaranteed? I think the rumours are at the moment he's starting to look like he might even be interested in going to Madrid.
Yeah,
Madrid might spend big, and I'm getting him, and I'm backing United will end up going to Madrid, because I think he's looking like he's being whispered out again, doesn't he? I think that the dismantling of PSG looks like it's going to happen with. Looks like Messi's going as well as it at the end of the season. So
if getting top 4 this season which is supposed bringing on to the next point. It's unlikely we're going to see any business between now and January. Klopp was quite frustrated with a journalist there before the Brighton game, and he was asked about it. You can tell he's not happy about the lack of investment. As you said, the new owners aren't going to spend loads of money when they know they're selling the club. It wouldn't
No,
make
because
sense.
that's a chunk of their profit of what they're going to take, because it'll take out the money that's in the plus, isn't it? So
Yeah.
that's my worry. As soon as they said they were up for sale, I think we were rumoured that we were up for sale before it became public for a while. Anyway, I think it was on the quiet market in the background, but as soon as it was official, and we haven't done the business in the summer, then they're not going to do it now, or unless it's a case of, you spend what you bring in, so something comes in or changes, or you get some sort of bargain. But it's not in their interest to do anything now. And the longer we're up for sale, the harder that's going to have an impact on ourselves.
Keita apparently isn't renewing his contract. If they could get a cut price offer for Keita, maybe Ox during the next couple of weeks, maybe something could happen then. But just in mentioning the owners before we move on from Liverpool, the new owners there's a rumour of, before we move on from Liverpool, there's a mention of potential new owners from Qatar coming in the not too distant future. How would you feel about that?
I think that sort of pedigree of money, because they just got buckets of the stuff, haven't they? Like seas and oceans of the stuff, and endless amounts by the look of it. As it's shown with similar parts of the world with the city owners, and for us to match them, then it's exciting. So it's that type of caliber, that sort of area. The South, whether it be that's like the Sikhs and all them sorts of people over there, they seem to be the ones with the big wallets now. So, and they are very passionate about football. And if it's the ones that I've read about that are rumoured, we're the team that they support and they watch. So, but you'll read that over and over when you get a player or a potential owner anyway. But whether that's true or not. There's been a few. I think it's that type of the world. There's a few there that's more likely than us getting an Elon Musk from Tesla, which is rumoured the other week. Don't get me wrong, that'd be incredible. Arguably the richest man in the world now. So, and it's just social media. After now he's bought, was it Twitter or whatever? So I think the exposure would bring your club to another level as well. But I don't know. I just think they took us as far as they can. The Yankees, the way they've got to do it. I'm not on the fence of the fans that have moaned. Wasn't happy when they tried to join the Super League, Super Champions League thing. Wasn't happy with that. Very pissed off with that. But other than that, they've delivered what they said they promised. It wasn't like Hicks and Gillette, where we'd have a spade in Stanley Park and promised us a new stadium and blah, blah, blah. They listened to the plans. They knew the history of the club. The club wanted to stay at Anfield. They've given us that, and we've built on what we've already got. Got a fantastic new main stand. Now we've got a newer stand at the Annie Road. So the club, they're not soft why they've done it. The club's worth more money now than when they bought it. We were facing administration at one point before they came in. The exposure of the club, what they took us, what we've also won, and then they've invested in Klopp with that. Balanced the books, were financially good. So I just think, and other silent partners they brought in as well, that I think that the club's in a far better place than when they brought it. So I've got nothing. I'm not going to sit here and criticise them. I just think it's like everything. They've took us as far as they can. I'm a bit questionable on a few things. I think I've read a lot of things over the last couple of years, and none of it seems to make sense with some of these deals, whether it be the new Nike sponsors deal that we got at the time, Santander was another deal, and I've seen lots and lots of stuff, and some of it doesn't equate to me of how much we seem to have been promised on different deals, and think we seem to always, we still been very, very clever, with savvy with Warden people that we seem to have sold very, very well and brought in, and never think. But people say we can't compete with the cities, and I get that. But there have been times where we've had a massive amount of money. I know we had COVID, which had a massive impact, but I would have just liked to have thought when we were dominating and we were winning the Champions League, we're going thing, then we had these other monies that we didn't have, that we'd have gone on and bought a couple of marquee signers rather than to add to what we already had.
Yeah.
You know, because we already had a fantastic forward line, some great talent coming through with Trent, a number one goalkeeper in my eyes in the world at the time, etc. And we only then did need one or two players to push on what we already had. Instead, we've got players in the next 18, within 18 was age, and I don't think that money's been. I don't know the ins and outs, but there's money. I think we've had more money than what we say that we've had that we could have spent.
Yeah,
but
no, it's. I think that will be their biggest legacy. I think winning the Premier League, winning the Champions League, redeveloping Anfield, redeveloping the training centre out in Kirby. But
yeah, that as well. Yeah,
I think that is their main legacy. But the sell to buy policy and not investing probably end up costing us a couple of more leagues as well. Yeah. Being honest about it, you know.
It's just a business to them, isn't it? It's everything's business, you know. But you're right. I think if they'd have gone and done what they do in the States with a baseball team, you know, that basically what they do is they'll do what they do with business, but they'll still go and compete and buy a marquee player to sort of answer the critics. And I think sometimes what's frustrated Liverpool fans is sometimes we don't look like we're their number one business priority. You know, we're just a case of sitting here, invest in the right things to make your stock bigger and worth more, but don't push us to that next level, you know. But yeah, I think this new, if it's rumored who these new guys are at Qatar, then I'm all for it.
Do you think top four is done and dusted, or do you reckon we can claw it back 10 points?
I think the problem we've had in the last couple of years, we would say we'll be pushing City, and then it's who's going to make up the other two. I think in the last couple of years, Tottenham would be pushing for a fourth, Chelsea would be going around third, and now we've gone and brought in the Arsenal back where they used to be, around the top four. So that's somebody you weren't expecting before. That's about the re-insurgence of a Newcastle. Their investments and their togetherness and how they're performing, they might fall off it by the wayside later on, just playing out of not having that running before, that experience. Maybe the squads need a few more to run out, but certainly pushing there and thereabouts. So Tottenham must be thinking, geez, as well, because they weren't having to worry. And then, so you've got. I honestly believe fourth's going to be a far harder proposition than what it was. We scraped it in other times just before and then pushed on with the last 10, 11, 12 games because we've got the ability to do that when others have got weaker or tired in the season. I can't see us doing that right now. I can't see us going on a run of 10, 11, 12 games at any point in the season. So, and that's with a club like Liverpool can't not be in the Champions League. You can't. To keep players, to bring new players in, the forward projection of sponsorships and things that they've done in the last couple of seasons, it'd be suicidal if we don't get in if we're not in the Champions League. You know, it absolutely it's unthinkable.
Do you know what? I'd rather finish 9th than finish 5th, though. Like, I'd rather be out of Europe completely than be in the Europa League. I know that might sound strange.
I think we've seen the impact of that when what's happened down the road, the other end of the M62 of Manchester. You know, it's them playing on a Thursday night hasn't helped them over there, and great. I've been enjoying watching them wallowing it because it's not been easy for them. At the same time, we didn't think that when they would be out of the Champions League that they'd be competing again for a long time. I've been looking what they're doing this season, so. You know, no one's got any given rights. You can't just turn up on a football field. You've got to play. You can't live on your laurels on your last seasons. And I think we did that for far too long from previous seasons before what we've done under Klopp. That's what's been so refreshing with him. We've just been up until recently. It's just been he's rebuilt us, and said basically from day one, forget the history. It's a fantastic history, but we now need to make our own. You know, and he's done that, but he's done it in a very thing. But it's like it feels like it's I feel like it's gone too quick, and it's not. If you're not careful, you're not going to be able to save it, and then you'll be playing catch up again because everyone else is getting stronger. When you
There is, however, a parallel to a certain season that you ended up having very fond memories of, a major name in 2004, 2005, where we were brutal in the league, finished fifth, and ended up winning the Champions League in Istanbul. And if I'm correct in saying so, that's where it also is this May. So
it is.
History repeat itself 18 years on.
We're Liverpool, and the romance of me would say, listen, we're not going to win that league this year, so let's just do what we can in the league, and let's collectively we've got them get the players back for the business end of the Champions League, and put all your eggs in your basket for that, because you theoretically can go on and win a Champions League by only playing half a dozen games, whereas you need to be playing a good 40 games to win a Premier League. So, I'm sure Klopp will be thinking that, and also that's probably our best route now to getting back in the Champions League, because by winning it, you're allowed to defend it. Not like 2005, where we weren't allowed to initially. We had to go through the qualifying stages the following season, which I remember, and I remember what happened with Everton as well, because where they were, and we were a fifth, and they were a fourth, and they were all that happened, stuff like that. So I think we had TNS in the qualifying games the following season.
I saw a banner before at Anfield the first time I did a tour. It said, Moses said, "Come forth." Rafa said, "No, we'll win the cup instead." That's very good.
Hey, I tell you what, people will only remember you win. So if you tell them now that we won the Champions League last year, this season, and people at the end, you remember you wouldn't think that way. You come in there, then you don't need to be. It's a cliche, and I don't like to sound wrong. It's an amazing trophy. As we know, we love the romance of the Champions League, what used to be the European Cup, but you don't need to necessarily be the best team to win the thing. You just need. Yeah. We weren't the best team in 2005, far from it, and you still think of people like Igor Biscan and people like that we had playing for our side. We rode our luck through most of it. We had some good, memorable times, and certainly in Istanbul, AC Milan was we were man and boys till half time, absolutely. But you're quite right when you think of that year, and ironically, we're playing at the same stadium again, and we're not looking as good as what we were in the league. So I'd love to have that conversation with the players and say that, let's look where we were at. But I think there's still some more points on the table that we should go for, and I think we've certainly got a better side this year than what we had in 2005 to be able to compete in the leagues as well. But
an emotional reunion with Berlusconi could be on the cards for you in Istanbul.
Oh. Yeah, I need to speak to him anyway. He hasn't sent me a Christmas card, so yeah, I'm going there. Round 2.
hopefully the same result.
Yeah.
But as I said, Real Madrid is next up. We owe Real Madrid one. And they beat us in 2 finals, and the quarter-final is in the last 4 or 5 years. So I think we're definitely owe Real Madrid a nice win there, So
I think you're right.
I think we could
have a good chance. Don't need any more motivation, do we?
Yeah, so I would definitely. It would be a very wise man that would bet against the Liverpool Football Club in Europe. I mean, that's a fair point. Especially at Anfield. So
yeah, 100%.
It could be our best chance.
I think it is. I know the 2 legs. I fancy us against anybody, and I think at some point we've got to wake up, and there's certainly better players to come back from injuries and stuff. So. And an opportunity for certain players as well to make the mark, because this is what people else aren't saying. Yes, we've got some aging players, but there are certain players there that, Harvey Elliott, Nunez for the future. These players will now go realise that anything below where they're at will be a step down. They're at Liverpool now. These players, if other players were fit, might not be playing week in, week out, like you said, Lewis, but he is. So take your opportunity, take your chance, and. We've got to not put pressure on these players. Just got to take your chances. I think the problem is as soon as you start losing some games, the confidence is now getting zapped right out of them, and the body language it's clear to see. And we need some sort of wake up It'd be nice to get a good signing. In a sense, I've seen that at clubs where you've got. I know you shouldn't rely on it, but something to give them a lift. I don't know. I'm not saying a signing is the right answer, but it used to happen, didn't it? Imagine getting a marquee, something that gives you a lift.
Yeah, and we need it. Like, we're not going to get top four with the midfield we have. Cody Gakpo can't wave a magic wand and change everything. Like, we need more reinforcements in the window. If we don't, forget about top four for the league. Yeah. That's my tuppence for anyway on that.
You won't see the problem is when players come back as well, they're going to need 4 or 5 games before the match fit, at least, especially the ones that have been out for quite a while. So you're then being affected where you're not as strong as what you were either. So
yeah, I think the season is the right half. Maybe it could be good, as someone was saying, just to go back, have a year out of Europe and just press the reset button and go back to 1 game a week. There's merit in that as well with the stage they're at, maybe, because it is a transitional stage, whether we like it or not. Players are moving on. New players have to be integrated into the team. And maybe sometimes you have to take a step backwards before going forwards. The greater good. So long as you don't end up in that Conference League, that would the one wish I'd have, or because the away trips there would really mess up a season next year, so you're better opting out completely.
At least we might be able to we'd still get a derby.
With Everton, is it?
We'll to play at Everton's new ground. Because whatever's going on with us, we got, it's only looking even more bleak down the road. It is pretty shocking. I believe they had all sorts of problems at their ground after the game the other night. So was it? I read today that they're one of their CEOs, the woman one, what's her name? She thinks she ended up in a headlock, did she, or something?
Christ God.
Pretty horrendous. So
can you see them going down?
Last year I thought it could happen. They turned things around at the end, didn't they? I think the problem is what makes me laugh is the cracks were already there. Nothing's changed. They get away with it, and then they have practically an open top bus parade when they survived. Treat them all like a messiah, and then slate them again when it's already in. And again, I don't think it's necessarily Lampard. I think they've got problems further above again. The Masiri, they've got issues there. He's invested. He's given them money. They've had money to spend. They can't say they've not had no money. I just don't think that. I think Lampard should have stayed at Derby, like Gerrard should have stayed at Rangers, learn the trade a little bit quicker before he went to Chelsea and a job at Everton. I just think it's beyond him at the moment. I don't think he's capable. Everton needs somebody. So I know they're going to laugh at me, but they need someone like a Sam Allardyce right now to keep them back, bring him back. You know what I mean? So, no, they need someone's going to.
Do you think Lampard's days are numbered? So you reckon he'll be?
I think he'd have been sacked the other day. I think the only reason why they haven't got the number 2 ready in place. I think they need someone who can. Ferguson did a good job every time. I think 3 times he was put in place every time they've lost a manager, but he just hasn't got the experience. So he's gone off left because he wants to learn, because he wants to be a manager there. But Ancelotti said he wanted to take him to Real Madrid, and that's how much he thought of him. He said he's meant to be a very good tactically and very good. You wouldn't think it, because we all see him as a bit of a physical guy when he used to play, wasn't he, Ferguson? But apparently he's very, very good on the training ground. And how much has that impacted? Because when they needed to fight last year, how much was he coaching them and showing the fight last year? They haven't got that this year, so maybe they're missing a Duncan Ferguson there.
Even West Ham as well are kind of dragged into the question down there, which is unusual.
Yeah, because he's been a steady thing there and done very, very well. Look where he was at getting into the Europa League final last season, was it, against Roma or whatever it was? Done a cracking job, and now he's looking. They're putting bets on him whether he's not going to make the next couple of weeks. So football, it's a fickle game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think just a stat which probably isn't the nicest one to hear, but we're closer to the bottom of the table than we are the top.
I'm going to change the black colour for something stronger.
I was saying, we're on with Everton being relegated. If we don't improve things, we won't get dragged into that question more than likely. But I was just going to move on to the title race at the top of the season. It's looking good for Arsenal, 8 points clear of Man City. Do you reckon they have what it takes to finish the job?
My money would still be on City only because they're proven, they've got the thing. They'll be ready to carry on consistently winning points. The truth will be over the next few weeks when Arsenal have other games in the cup games as well. I think the problem when you start getting, which you've got now, is belief, and you've got that gap, and you've got belief. It's almost like what happened with Leicester. Arsenal are playing better football than Leicester were there, but they just got that point where they were on a momentum, and then you sort of, it's a bit like when we were on momentum last year when we couldn't get beat. We must have been knackered in some games from the games early 2-3 days before, but I think you just find a way to win, don't you? And you do it, and I think they're on a real good momentum. I think Arteta, he can't not become a good manager after the people he's worked with, Pep Guardiola and people like that. He's just been given the time and brought his own people in eventually, because look where he was at this year. And this year, remember him having that little to do with Klopp on the sidelines where it was his frustration was coming out and stuff. He got rid of a couple of bad eggs himself. He's also kept players. We've got to remember, I think we talk about who we were linked with. I think we really wanted Sacco ourselves, didn't we? After his penalty miss for England last year in the Euros, before he went on to do what he's done now, we were strongly linked with him. I think Klopp really wanted him. They've kept him. They've added to it. So I can't. If there was a better man, I'd normally still say City. But I think Arsenal are going to be there or thereabouts. They're the top. They're the top two. I think it'll take something really bad for to go wrong with Arsenal now to not. But people, Chelsea have got their issues. They're not doing what we expected. There's rumours today that Raheem Sterling, he's only been there a few months, and it looks like they already might be trying to get rid of him already.
I'll get the violin out in a minute there.
Yeah.
I won't be shedding any tears if you get still down anyway, but
greedy bastard. Sorry.
But I was watching Arteta in the Amazon Prime documentary there behind the scenes, and he seemed like a really good coach and motivator. It was really good insight into how things are running at a top club. Now, the one reservation I would have is we're only halfway through the season right now. Like normally we'd have 22 or 23 games played, but it's 19. I think it's 18 for Arsenal actually, as at time of recording. So they blew top four last year from a very strong position, which is kind of important not to forget that. And I wonder, will they be able to handle the intensity of a title race for coming into the real white heat of April, early May? You know ourselves, like they're tough times, they're tough battles. But
yeah, and there's no experience in that sort of being involved in that. Maybe that might give them some advantage instead of being fresh. That's why I think still City will do it. Yeah. Especially the decisive games when playing each other. And then a team that you don't expect to take some points, maybe take them off now with you. Other teams, the biggest games have always been, haven't they, the games against each other, the 6 pointers when like a Liverpool play a City or blah, blah, blah. But right now, no. We'll look at it with the games we've had with Brentford and Brighton and people like that. There's no easy games in this Premier League.
And it's part not to denigrate Brentford and Brighton as well. I know we're talking as if Liverpool, we're going through, and they are going through crisis, but they are two decent teams to play against, Brentford and Brighton, and they
play very good football. Yeah. And look where Brentford are on the table as well. Hats off to them. So for the Premier League, when you said about 2005 before, and it is similar in how bad we are, but you look at those sides in the 2005 season compared to where your top four were at the time and who they were in the Premier League compared to now top 4 or 5. That the mid-table section now, it's almost like a league in itself. It's the strength of that Premier League. You could take the top the middle 4 to 8 and put them in a league in La Liga, France, Italy, and I don't arguably say that you know, other than your Real Madrid, Barcelona, whether they could quite easily take over most of those teams in those other leagues, because that's how strong that Premier League is right now. You know, it's a different level.
The Manchester derby on Saturday, another questionable interpretation of the offside rule for Bruno Fernandes's equaliser. What did you make of that?
What was your view on it? What do you think? Do you think it was?
I think he 100% was interfering with play. He was running towards the ball.
Yeah.
Whether or not he touched the ball or not, in my opinion, I know it's not the official, by the official rule book, it wasn't offside. But if you're a Man City defender, you're going to go towards him. You know, like he technically affected the defender's shape.
Football compared to when I played myself, and then when I played, then like, only even 3-4 years ago to when you see that it's changed again now. There's so much more that say interfering with play is what tells it to me now when it's changed. You know, you only have to if you're in someone's sight line and someone thinks it's affecting it. I don't think it touched them, but I think there's interference in play, and that's where it's been ruled. I think so. It's harsh, but that seems to be. So saw somebody the other day, and that seems to be the thing as well. That World Cup, you know, and I think that's had a big impact if you look at some of the stuff. The World Cup, some of the decisions, certainly as well with time being added on at the end of the games. I don't know if you've noticed. Seems to not be a lot more minutes there for the game, whereas you could have loads of things happen in the game. Whereas I think within a week, someone to make it mention it, 11 minutes and things like that have been added, and there seems to be as if something's happened there that's earmarked different thing with the VARs and different stuff, but also the certainly with interfering with players, a couple of big decisions in the World Cup, and I think it's had a knock-on effect into the Premier League, some of the decision making. But it's a shame, but that's the same with everything. It's not a contact ball either anymore, is it? You know, they come off with the hair still all fancy. Jack Grealish has his socks not even pulled up. No, it's not. I love the game, but it's not a contact sport anymore. And now you can't even interfere with play with. You don't have to be touching the ball. You interfere with play while you're in someone's sideline. So,
but then goals are just allowed for having a crest of a jersey offside. Then you know what I mean. Just the consistency isn't there. I think that's kind of the main issue.
That is the word, the consistency. But also with some of these VARs, when you see an angle, so it's there, and then they show the line of where the line is to there. I don't know. I don't sometimes get with the offside line. They go at that pinpoint where if it's angled there, but if you've angled it that way all the way, the camera's there, it could be looking slightly different again. And then if you've seen that from that camera where they do the line was on the opposite side of the field, that's still the same thing. Because if you say it could be the wind of the jersey moving, could be thing. It's got to be more problems, I think. So it's got to be like a horse racing. It's got to be the nose in it. You know, it's got to be. There's got to be an element of common sense. If not, you ruin like that Louis Diaz, that Nunez goal for me in normal stance. For the seer determining the way he's finished it alone should be a goal. Obviously, if he was offside by half a yard, he's offside. But it's margins, you know. And I think it's ruining the game.
I've no idea how anyone is a linesman. I genuinely don't, because the amount of times it can take to make a decisive call in VAR and to do that in real time, I just don't know how.
Don't get me wrong. There's that much money in the games today. I do believe if it's a big, massive, you know, if it's this game can affect somebody from being fourth of getting in Champions League or a final and winning the cup, you need to get these decisions right, and you certainly need the help of this and the thing. I mean, that Brentford game in real play time. Not only what happened with Nunez, that Brentford game, that initial save from Alisson when he does that, almost like a Gordon Banks, where he done. Yeah. I know he was mid up, not going up. I was like, wow, what a save that was in normal time. When you see it back, he's obviously clearly a ball's width over the line that he's pulled it out. You know, and he's probably not realising he's doing it because it's 100 miles an hour, and he probably thinks he's made a great save. You know, but obviously it was over the line, and if it had been Liverpool and that had been given, I'd be pissed off and gutted. So It can have the right decisions, but in real time, how many games in previous years, some big games as well, would things be different? I mean, there must be players today, legends and players of the game, that have gone down in folklore of sort of thing and goes, actually, if you're on the pitch or anything, you may not have got the goal. It may not have been a goal. You know, it might not have been a.
Yeah.
There's so many. There'd be a different scenario, wouldn't it?
And I suppose we'd always wonder why. You know, I would always wonder what if such a goal was given. That's the beauty of sport as well, I suppose. You know, you can.
It is. It is, and you know, it's some of the moments in history that have gone down, but that gives you something to talk about as well, doesn't it? I think it does take away some of the problems you get in the game, in a sense, when it's decisive. If you don't want problems in the stands and you don't want problems with it's a decision and that's it and that's 100%. But it's those moments of I don't know how the players do it. When they're celebrating on the pitch and you see some of them moments with the Brentford game again, we think, is it? And you think, oh, it was the Wolves game as well the other day. What game was it the other day? Last week, was it the Wolves game? Was another one, wasn't there? Who was the one with? And they thought he'd scored.
Wolves, got the late winner. Incorrectly disallowed, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you see and he's gone on and scored anyway. The same player, didn't he? He's gone on and scored after it and done a thing. But the initial adrenaline is you think you've scored, and to have to come down from that.
Yeah. To not standing.
To get yourself, pick yourself back up. It'd probably take me 5-10 minutes to get over it. But yet they seem to adapt to it quite well. But I'd be sick.
Man United's controversial goal has, on paper, put them into the title race. Do you reckon they're contenders now to win it?
No.
You don't think so?
Can't polish a turd, mate. No, their manager's doing well. Like I said before, they've improved. They've got rid of something. They still need a couple of players as well. They're not. As long as you've got the captain, where's gone up my mouth? Harry Maguire in defence. Then no, I don't rate him at all.
He's been dropped though recently. I think.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, people like him. Big fan of Eriksen. You know, think he's fantastic still, especially with what's happened with him with his house to come back and do that at football at his age as well, determination. And they brought in a couple of players there, as I say, what they brought in from the Dutch league and stuff like that.
Casemiro is doing well, but you don't think they're contenders just yet.
No, and I do think they'll be stronger again next season. I just don't. I don't think so. I don't think so. They have improved, and I wouldn't want to play them. Okay, and I do think they'll give City a better game than what they've done for a long, long time. But the City far too much quality in a different kettle of fish. I think United's still improving, but no.
It felt like United of old is one thing I would say though. Getting those 2 quick goals, it was very Fergie-esque. The way they came back and won that game. But I
think it'll all depend on clubs. I don't know. They look better. I just don't. It could be interesting. Listen, they could pip where Arsenal go fall back and not lose a couple of games back to back, City thingy, and then could end up having Manchester 1 and 2. But
hopefully not. Arsenal and Man United next week would be an interesting one. They've got the derby and then you've got that game as well the following week. So it's some points there to be lost in game by either side. These are the games when you watch them, don't you? You don't want anyone getting any what's the name. So you start hoping there's some. Neither of them get 3 points, and you want to take points off each other and get draws. That's how you watch some games sometimes, isn't it? But I think we're at the point where we just got to forget whatever else is going around us, and we just need to we need to start winning games and get points on the board and get some sort of level of consistency. Even if we've got to win ugly initially, just we've got to get compact. We've got to become hard to beat, and get. There doesn't seem to. My worry as well. There doesn't seem to be a plan B recently. If you noticed, we keep them with the same shape, with the same formation, with the same
He doesn't seem to be having a plan B or mixing up to change anything or to give anything different. We still doing. I don't know.
Yeah, they're running out of ideas a bit. Speaking of being compact and well organised, I think one team that definitely fit that bill are Newcastle this season. They're the best defence in the league on paper. Like, they have 11 goals conceded in 19 games.
Eddie Howe's doing a fantastic job, and they brought players in, but they're not players where I go, oh geez, I recognise his name. They're not like big name players. I think they've bought some shoot fans and people that are obviously doing well in their teams. They got them from them. I thought it's not an easy thing getting them in that thing, especially with the expectations you get at Newcastle. The fans are fantastic fans, but they can certainly let you know if they're not happy. I honestly thought that'd still be a project where you wouldn't see what they're doing now for a couple of seasons. You'd just see them starting to push for maybe top 6 and and then next bring a couple more in each window and get rid of some dead wood. But what he's done in a short space of time is a miracle. The problem we've got there is I think he's just got to invest into the project and stick where it is, because he could be doing a great job there. Then that's where you'll get someone like a Chelsea or someone sniff around offering what's the name, but then he could be sacked there after 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. You know what I mean? So he just needs to stick with the project, I think, there. And
when Chelsea and Man City got new owners in the first year or two, they really went out and bought a lot of fancy Dans and Flash Harrys and kind of true money. And Newcastle have spent money too now in the last 12 months, but they've gone from the relegation zone to top 3 at the moment. But the players they've signed are very, like of Trippier. They're good, solid signings. It's not just, as an example, when Robinho was signed by Man City, he was kind of a flair player, like a Samba. He was like a big name at the time.
Yeah, you got to remember that he was missold there, mate. He thought he was going to Manchester United. He just remembered the name Manchester. He didn't know there was 2 clubs in Manchester. That's what the rumor. That's what the joke was with that. At the time, what a player he was. Yeah. But you're right. They got someone that was, a bit a name. When City, Chelsea did it under Mourinho the first time round, and Trippier, he's getting the same way. Trippier's a class player. His ball distribution is fantastic for corners and free kicks, and he works hard. He's an honest player. He's. I like watching him when I've watched him when England have been playing. I don't really watch much of that stuff, but when I have, I've seen that you see his effort and his quality. I say young great manager that's now being backed. When you try to do your ideas, what he's had, he did well at his previous club, but there's no money there to. You could see what he's trying to play very good football, but without the personnel necessary to do it. He'd been a player there, hadn't he, before as well? So I must have been ready for him to leave there at the time, but for his football thing, and then he was linked. I think at the time as well, he'd had a good spell before he linked at the international, because when he was having issues with, I think it was when Allardyce got sacked from England, or when he was running for that job, I think he was being linked there now, and so everyone knows he's a good manager. I say you get the right players at that club. They've got a fantastic fan base, and they deserve a bit of better fortune, because with that last owner, with
less said about him the better, really.
Less said about him the better, So, but he's looking at buying someone else. Has he? Did he get Coventry or something?
Well, I hope whatever club he's looking to buy, don't take him on anyway, because
actually he's a weapon.
They're a fan base, but through that shit again, But
he's a weapon, not like Ashley. Stick to Sports Direct, so close.
Yeah, they're in the League Cup semi-final against Southampton, so there's a potential trip to Wembley there on the horizon. But they exited the FA Cup against Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough, and we were just talking about this before we came on air there.
Yeah.
Give a bit of background. Mark had 2 cousins who were killed in the Hillsborough disaster in 1989, and there was reports of crushing, bad stewarding. People were fearing for their safety outside Hillsborough last week. for the game. So, like, what was your reaction to that? And it brought back a lot of bad emotions for you.
The initial response was shock and anger, just because obviously your own personal things, but just as a whole, just cannot believe that in the year 2023 that we're even having this conversation, that we're not even seeing those sort of scenes that potentially could have been escalated and got out of hand. Shocked to see that, ironically, at the same ground, that I just think the amount of tension that has gone onto that ground since what happened, you know, in the past. That I just cannot believe that ground has not been rectified and not been brought up to, not even today's day and age of standards. I'm talking what it would have been 20 years after it's gone on. You know, these are just normal fundamentals that you should have. Even then, when it happened, you should go to a football match and be able to feel safe. Not even a football match, any public gathering needs an element of safety that goes into it that has to be addressed, for people to go there. And you then go with the safety knowing whether it's a concert, whatever it might be, they're there. And that ground was one fit for bill then. It's certainly not fit for bill still now, and it's a shock. And it's just lucky that, and luck is the only word, that it could have been a hell of a lot worse. And listening to some of the reports with the Newcastle fans, they worried because they were there. They've gone there thinking, yes, everyone knows that ground, but it's not going to be what it was all those years before. Because I didn't know that things hadn't adapted and changed. You just presume that things will have been put in place to improve that. You know, me personally, I think you should. No one should go through that turnstile, that gate again to that ground. That ground needs to be, that whole part of that stand. Lives are important. No, don't even chance it. Close that part and get it sorted. It's disrespectful for those that we've lost that it's not been addressed. So never mind anybody else to go through that.
I'm just going to read out a couple of comments from people who were at Hillsborough last week. It was absolute chaos. The bottom tier is the worst I've seen. People having to pick their children up as it was so tight. Newcastle fans trying to get through the tunnel at the Lippings Lane end with more or less no stewarding 10 minutes before kick-off. You can see, and I'm going to put the photograph in the overlay, all in the same section, just like in 89 from a distance, like in that, we'll say, the central pin area. Even the top tier concourse is rammed tight, stairwells too narrow, and the stewards directing fans to the wrong area, creating more bottlenecks. This shouldn't be happening. Or if we were crushed, we had to rip off the blue covers from seats to create our own area for about 100 people. Stewards above at empty seats were turning down fans with valid tickets. A mess. I was in the centre of the lower tier and it was ridiculously crowded 10 minutes before kickoff. The stairwell filled with fans, and when we arrived, we asked stewards to point us in the right direction. One told us to go wherever we want. So that doesn't sound like a very nice experience. And having been crushed myself going into Stade de France in Paris, the Champions League final last year, you know, this still can't be happening in 2023, and the sooner something is done about it, the better. As you said, but I don't understand how that stand is still standing. The negative mojo of
just
knock it to the ground, like, you know.
It's just when you said the name. Me personally, just saying Weapons Lane. There's only one thing that goes in my mind when you say that, and it should just be squashed. Get rid of it. Call it something different. I think it's disrespectful that it's even there. I can't. The heat that's been on that ground afterwards, because rightly so, with the campaigning and the adjustments and everything else, everyone associates, everyone knows. So why leave yourself even more exposed? Why risk anyone else's lives? Why you know? And I'm not saying they're not a team that's been able to progress, that they're not in the league that they were in before, but there's enough stuff going on for safety. What's in the surely with the government of the responsibility that they should take of what's happened with the afterwards, and just another way of trying to apologize, making things right, is just making sure that that gets taken down and there's an injection of money or something to build something else.
Yeah.
Out of respect for the lives that have lost, never mind anything else, because it's just an absolute travesty. Absolute, and as I say, it's just a blessing that something more hasn't happened. And as you say, what happened with you over in Paris, that's not a ground that's in a lower league division or thing.
But the Stade de France is the national stadium.
Of course it is. Sorry, yeah.
So
world-class stadium now, because they've had huge sporting events there and everything else, and there's no excuse for it. But mainly, again, from what I can see and from what I believe and what I'm told, not necessarily down to infrastructure of ground, like with Hillsborough, in a sense of more of completing competence when it comes to organisation from outside stewards and people like that, ushering people the wrong way, lack of signs saying which way, sending people down rabbit warrens now, bottlenecks, not letting it fill through, keeping gates shut that they should have done before then, and people panicking, all those sorts of things to escalate. And from what I'm told and what I believe, what people are telling me, just not made to feel very welcome anyway. It's as if, I know, please don't think I'm being prejudiced in any way, just being reality of what I'm told. It's English, French don't like, blah, blah. Then the other side were made to feel okay. We weren't, and that's just how it seemed to be. I don't know how much truth is in that, but to hear what went through for yourself as well, and things that to be being crushed in this day and age, just not acceptable. And again, I'm just glad it's not. I'm glad it's not just been pushed under the carpet. That the people who were campaigning, there's a lot of journalists and people that were there at the time that recorded a lot of stuff, a lot of things that went on. So it wasn't just your working class fans. A lot of people who were in the media who it happened to as well, that sort of brought a lot of attention onto it that hasn't been watching, so they've had to come out and take responsibility rather than just be it's Liverpool fans again, because that seems to be the tarnish of the brush that we get slapped with all the time. Oh, it's just Liverpool fans, because that's how it was getting. People say at the beginning they're making out that it was us, and there's kids getting CS gassed and all sorts. It's a disgrace.
Not one of my nicer memories of going to a football match anyway, that's for sure. Before we wrap up, Mark, what's your prediction for what's been described as El Shitico on Saturday, Liverpool versus Chelsea? What are your thoughts?
Liverpool Chelsea Saturday, no better time to play. We're not looking good. Certainly Chelsea aren't looking any much better compared to what they were last year and the year before. I think their knee-jerk reaction getting rid of their manager was Sainsbury's, one of the best managers still in Europe at the time. He did great with them, didn't he? Getting them to where they got last year. So, I think they won't. They'll want to play us where we're at the moment, but I think we'll want to play them where they're at the moment as well. So, if we don't win these two games, I'd like to speak to you next Monday, because I tell you what, if we're not still in a cup and we've been beat there, it's really is a shit show.
Yeah. Man United and Arsenal next weekend. What are your thoughts? That'll end up?
The way they're both playing could end up being a stalemate, could be a draw. Say that, I can see goals. You never want to see United win, so hopefully Arsenal will beat them. But at the same time, if we can start getting a run together, and you want us to be pushing for anywhere near fourth, anyone that's likely to be pushing us for fourth is more likely to be United at the moment than Arsenal. But you can't. You're thinking too far ahead. So maybe better for any of us if there's a draw, because I don't want anyone to win. But and I don't want United to win any game. So come on, Arsenal.
I'm very much with you on that one. So Mark, thanks again for coming back on, and looking forward to having you on more regularly this year.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, and thanks to all the listeners as well, and all the best to everyone.
Depending on how both our jobs go, we'll try and do more episodes this year anyway, and hopefully there'll be happier weeks and weekends ahead. Liverpool than the recent few, but the only way is up from here. Really, I don't think we want to be as bad as that.
Definitely.
In the season. Just what we've lined up as well on my vlogging channel, Pitch Bottom with Podrick, we've got 2 tickets together for the Merseyside derby, Liverpool versus Everton, on the 13th of February. So I'll be vlogging that game, and Mark will be beside me as well, giving his tuppence worth, only this time inside Anfield as opposed to on Zoom after it. So if you're listening on audio only on Podbean or Spotify, please click follow. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and click the notifications bell. And if you're enjoying the content and want to buy me a coffee to help with the cost run the podcast, you can do so in the link below as well. So thanks again to you, Mark, for coming on. Thanks to you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Parlay with Podrick podcast. Good night. God bless.